Men, people, you are surrounded by the perilous times, but in particular he describes the carriers of the perilous. He goes on to say in verse 2, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. It reveals the very first and chief sign you must look out for in the carriers of the perilous. Paul gives us the first chief sign, signifying that you're right slap bang in the middle, surrounded by these people, and they are, number one, lovers of their very own selves. Now these lovers of their very own selves, the word in the Greek is a bizarre word. It is an extremely bizarre Greek word, phileatos, and this word indicates this romantic, almost a romantic, a very powerful self-love. So fond of self, so in love with self, so attracted to self, so romantically in love with oneself, that it is an inordinate self-love, or it indicates self-love, not in a godly sense, but in an egotistical sense. For example, we must love ourselves. We must love ourselves, however, in the light of the Father's love. Jesus said these words when they were trying to catch him out, the religious system. He said these words when they challenged him on the 10 Commandments, which is the most important one. Now, if he just singled out one, he'd be causing the others to be not so important, and that would have caused major problems for him. So what he does is he sums up the entire law with these words: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength. And the other is like it. The first commandment, he says, is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Man, it's beautiful the way he sums up all 10 of the commandments of the moral law, if you will. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. So to the measure that you understand God the Father's great love for you, you are to love your neighbor as yourself. But you are to love yourself in the context of your understanding of how much God the Father loves you. And if he loves you so much, you can love you so much. And with that measure of love that you understand the Father loves you with, because that love is a sacrificial love. That love is a selfless love. That love is the absolute antithesis and opposite to self-love. So God loved us so much that he gave his only begotten Son. That love it's one of the most powerful scriptures in the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And the Son of God did not come to condemn the world, because self-love will cause you to always be condemning. As the Father has loved me, Jesus said, so have I loved you. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's why people battle to love their neighbors. They battle to love their neighbors because they cannot see and they do not know how much God the Father loves them. So they turn to self-love. They idolize self. They worship self. Everything is about self. Self-love gives no room for your neighbor. But selfless love that comes from the Father, with the measure that the Father has loved you, so have I loved you, said Jesus. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. So The commandment towards man, if you look at the two sections of the Ten Commandments, the first part of it is to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all of your strength. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself, just as important. But you are to love yourself, not as in self-love, but you are to love yourself in the context of God the Father's great love for you, that you are so valuable to Him, that you are so precious to Him, that He created you with the purpose of His love for you. That's why He created you, so that you could be the purpose of His affection, of His love, of His romanticizing, everything. So because it's from outside, not from within for you, self only, but a selfless, that love, that agape love, that divine love, when you know how precious you are, when you know how valuable you are, when you know just how God the Father, that's why religion, I can't stand it, because what religion teaches you is a schizophrenic God that's out to get you if you just do something wrong, and you've got to be so perfect, and you've got to be so right, and you've got to walk like this and talk like that and be puffed up. Listen, people, it's sick. That is an egotistical self-love. But the love that comes from the Father is beautiful. It's wonderful. It's kind. It's gracious. It's long-suffering. It's patient. Doesn't think any evil. Doesn't think evil about you. Doesn't keep a record of wrongs. And when you see how much He loves you, and you begin to love yourself with His love, with that measure, you then are able to love your neighbors. But when your love is self-inspired, self-induced, when that love, when you become lovers of their own selves, not in the context of the love of God for you, that you then can love your neighbor because you recognize how valuable they are, how precious they are, and you want them to see that same love. By this shall all men know that you are truly my disciples, by your love one for another. Not the rubbish that I see going on today. Gossip, backbiting, slandering, backstabbing, betrayal, false witness. These are all signs of self-love, because what it tries to do is get rid of you. And one of the ways, the most powerful ways you can destroy any testimony or witness or a life that will take all his goods and strip him bare of everything, is to assassinate a man's character. That comes out of self-love, because self-love preserves self, cares only for self, romanticizes self. I'm so great, I'm too great to fold my shirt. It's sick, people. Now watch. It denotes a feeling so intense for self. So the first sign you need to look toward for the carriers of the perilous is that self-love that is critical of everybody. That's how you're going to recognize it. That is slandering everybody. Nobody, they don't run themselves down, but they run everybody else down. Just listen to the speech of Christians when they are condemning, criticizing, judging everybody and everything. Then you must know self-love has arrived in your midst. Now, that is the first sign of an end-time society, and you must know this. Be emphatically aware. Certainly know that such that have this misdirected love, and out of misdirected love, lovers of self, out of misdirected love comes a covetous people. A covetous people. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2.